God's mercy and forgiveness. And it all started, I was born prematurely back in Maryland. I'm from Florida. Most of my family's from Florida. My mom's family she had family in Maryland. And we went up there, well, I was in traveling mode anyway. We went up there to visit family, and I was born up there. I was there for 3 whole days, and then I come back to Florida. Anyway, I was raised in a place called Holly Hill, which is mainland side Daytona Beach. A lot of good things went on there, a lot of bad things went on there. You got to remember, this is early 60s, late 60s, 70s. There was a lot of racism going on. Florida was very good for that, as far as a lot of KKK was there. There was a lot of negative vibes back in then. Didn't grow, wasn't even there yet. Anyway, I didn't know God growing up. It's not like I was forced to go to church. Most of my family did not go to church. It's amazing because later on in life, one of my favorite uncles, his nickname was Jaime. And that shows you how old this goes back, because that's an old nickname. He actually stopped drinking and doing drugs and everything, and he became a deacon at a Southern Baptist church, which I'm probably 9, 10 years old when this happened. And but one thing about it is he never, being young, he didn't share it with me, and that experience, the experience then, it might have made a change with me back then. It might have put me on an enlightened path to where I'm going now. And I can say that was definitely my loss, but it was weird because he was my favorite uncle, and we had a very good dynamic, and then it was like, all of a sudden he was gone out of my life, and but I just thought he was doing something different, but he actually was. He had found the Lord. He got married, he had found the Lord, and, changed his life. But I was too young to, I guess, for him to pull me off to the side and say, hey, there's something better, When I was young, of course, I had no relationship with my dad whatsoever. It was, I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, literally. But now I had a great relationship with my mom. My mom she had a little woman, but she was fierce, she was tough, you know what I mean? And from the time that I can remember, probably 4 or 5 years old, my dad always made me go to work with him. And that was summertime. I might have got 2 or 3 days off for summer school, for summer vacation. But, after that it was done, okay, 5:30 come, let's go. No choice in the matter, it was just, regardless of my feelings about the situation, that's what I wrote down, which is, a lot of times I didn't want to go. You were a kid, you want to play, you want to play with your friends. But there's 2 things in life that my dad has taught me that really stick with me, besides drinking, and that was my whole family that taught me that. It wasn't just him. But the first thing was to have a good work ethic, to get up, go, get the job done, do it right, And the second one was how to duck, because he was pretty good with his hands, and he didn't mind using them, whether it was just me or my mother, and he was a big man. He was 6'4", about 235. My mom was 5'2", maybe a $110 when she was wet, Of course, I was 12, 13. I was probably lighter than my mom, But, I just, like I said, it was a non-existent. I seen my dad cry one time, and it was from something stupid I did, but, that was the only time in my life I ever seen him cry, and that was with, loss of family or whatever. He was very emotionless unless he was drunk. And then he was emotional, but the wrong kind of emotional, the anger and frustration and all that came out. Anyway, I pretty much grew up down at my great-grandma and grandpa's house. They had 11 acres down on the water. And I stayed over there as much as I could. They were about probably 5, 6 miles from our house. And I could ride my bike over there. And I'd stay over there as much as I could just to stay away from my dad. And I grew up on the water a lot. You know, I was by myself a lot young, you know what I mean? But it was my escape. I mean, I had a 12-foot John boat back then, you know. This was probably 1970 when I got it. And I had that for, God, till I grew up to like 14 or something like that. Anyway, it had a 4-horse, this is how old this is. It had a 4-horse Montgomery Ward Sea King motor on it. You know, it had the big showing oil and all that, and I learned how to do all that when I was small. But that was my safety valve. That was I could get out in that water and I could get away. Nobody could catch me. Because you know, little boat, I could get in all the little places, so that's what I would do. I'd get away. Well, when I was growing up down there at my great-grandparents' house, because like I said, I'd stay there most of the time, just to stay away from my dad. And the good and the bad of that is I had 3 cousins, and 2 of them, one was a year younger than me, one was a year older than me. So we were like the 3 brothers, you know. And then they had a brother that was 10 years older than all of us. And of course he was into cars and girls, you know. We just thought he was cool because the girls would come around, you know. Like I said, 60s, early 70s, you know, the love revolution was going on, you know. And of course you're in Florida, nobody wears clothes in Florida anyway because it's 90 degrees all the time, you know. So anyway, we kind of got involved with each other, but his brother was already into drugs, drinking and all that. We just thought he was God, you know, not sacrilegiously, but, you know, an idol of ours as children, you know what I mean? And they thought it was great to get us drunk, to get us high, you know. So I was 8 years old the first time I smoked a joint. I was a little bitty guy. And change of life, you know, right then. Because, you know, that led to me purchasing it when I was 10 years old, you know, because the guy lived next door sold drugs. So, you know, it was convenient, you know. And because of him being older, they were doing the harder drugs. They were doing the LSDs and, you know, the harder drugs. So, of course, that flowed right through, too. You know, we 10, 11, 12 years old, going to school, you know, coming back with a hangover, you know, because you've done that the night before, so you're trying to, if you've never done it, it's really hard to explain, but it's like the worst hangover you could ever have. And when you're 12 years old, that's something you shouldn't have to deal with, you know, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's see. Yeah, okay. And like I said, my dad, he was, I would say, pretty emotionless. And of course, I patterned my mannerisms right after him, even, I guess, more unconsciously than consciously, you know, because he was still my hero, regardless, you know. I've watched him get into fights in the bar, and he'd clean out the whole bar. That's my dad, you know, but, you know, it wasn't a good way, you know, but it wasn't that I was really proud of him. I guess in a way I was, you know, because that was my dad, you know. And I always tried to look for something good, I guess, you know, but I never found it, you know. I never found it with him. Like I said, my dad was a heavy drinker. He was very light on beer. He was always into the alcohol, the whiskeys, the bourbons. It was nothing to see him put a fifth away and still walk around, you know. And I'd be like, you know, how do you do it? But, you know, he'd built the tolerance. Like I said, he was a big man anyway, you know, so. Probably from the time I was 9 or 10 years old working with him, I had to learn how to drive. Well, I already knew how to drive anyway because we had tractors and stuff, but I had to learn how to drive his truck because there was a bar on the way home. And of course it was called home stretch, but it was too far for me to get out and walk home, you know, or I even tried to bring him a bike one time and tried to ride home, and it took me about 2.5 hours to ride home, so that wasn't an option, you know. So I'd have to stay and, you know, we'd probably get there at dark time, and it might be 1 o'clock when we left, to go home to eat, And I'm thinking, but that was especially in the summertime, that was my childhood. It was either go to work, go to a bar every day, 6, 7 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, so. But it wasn't the greatest childhood, but it wasn't the worst, I had my mom. My mom was a very good buffer. She was the saint. My mom was the only person in my family that didn't drink. She might drink 1 glass of wine on New Year's, and that would be it, for the whole year. She didn't drink, but she wasn't opposed to it because, like I said, everybody else in the family drank. Everybody was given right, I guess, if you say it that way. Well, good thing about sitting at the bar, though, is I got really good at pinball, and I remember the shuffle bowling things. I used to be really good. While everybody was in that bar, I cleaned them out. As an 8-year-old, it's like, stuff that you really shouldn't have to deal with, and I'm glad that he don't have to deal with it, my son, that he don't have to deal with that, because he's seen, you guys have never seen the worst side of me, never, you know what I mean? I've been on really good behavior since I've known all of y'all. Chris has seen me when he's seen me drunk before. My son has seen me in more ways than one, and I don't want him to, I'm very blessed. My son don't drink, he don't do drugs, he don't do anything. He loves his computers, he's a smart child, not a child man, and for me, that's blessed, because I don't have to worry about him hanging out with the wrong people. I don't have to worry about him going down the road that I went down. We actually have a relationship, and it's something that I work on every day, because I ask the Lord to guide me, because this is my first child, and I'm a single parent raising him, and you understand what I'm thinking about, so, it goes a long way that way. Long story short there, I am blessed to have him. I'll get back to that towards the end of this. Well, all that, my life continued pretty much on that same path until I was 13. 13, my dad passed away. He passed away from drinking and driving. They said he hit an overpass at about 85 miles an hour, so they pretty much scraped him out of the car, closed casket. It was bad for me. It was great for me, I'll say it that way, but it was bad the way I looked at it. I was the happiest person on earth that day. And I know it's a sad thing to say, but it's the truest thing I've ever said in my life. I've never hated somebody in my life like I did that man. And I don't ever want to hate anybody like that again. I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I've been put through a lot of different situations through the service and all that, and I don't ever want that to happen again, with me or anybody that I'm close to, because that's just, it resonates. It does something to your soul. And for a long time, it took the emotions out of me completely. I turned into my dad, even though that's the last thing I wanted to be. But because of the way that I was raised and the background of it, I became him subconsciously. When I quit drinking, it's been a little over 4 years now. I quit everything. The only thing I do now is I read my book, and I try to espouse it to people that want to listen, and even the ones that don't want to listen, because it only takes a second. Bobby the other day had a man call him on the phone talking about the roof on this church. We have hail damage. The guy was an atheist. He came over to Bobby and talked to him. Drove to the house. Bobby talked to him for an hour. When he left, he was no more than an agnostic. So he made progress just like that. But just, the opportunities I've had since living with Bobby and Debbie and embracing this, embracing everybody and everything that goes on with the God and church, it's really shown me a different light. And it showed me there's a whole lot of world out there that I never even knew existed, period. You know what I mean? Since I've come to this church and met Bobby's friends and your friends and, family and all that, I've seen more people that have been married together for 30 plus years than I've ever known in my life. And it amazes me that people really put that conviction to, its challenge and conquer it. I won't say conquer it, survive it and build on it. You know what I mean? And I've never met people like that before. And it's just, to me, it's amazing, because it's like, it shows you what the true values in the Christianity life is. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like an amazing thing because I've never experienced that, ever at all. Like I said, with my dad, he was always angry, and it was always either me or my mom that caught it. Now I would try to take up for my mom, but I'm 12 years old, little guy. My dad would be, hold me up by my shirt collar, swing me around, think it was funny, laugh at me, But that was the kind of person he was. Okay. Well, when I went into service and I did my 4 years, when I got out, I always thought to myself, because I'd matured some by then. I won't say matured, I'll say some. Because I'm just now some mature now, But I always thought maybe we could have built a relationship, some kind of relationship, whether it was good, bad, average, just high, anything. Because I thought, well, you can't whoop me no more. You know what I mean? You ain't going to do your way. You're going to know I was there regardless. But I always thought that would have been bad too because I didn't want that to happen. Growing up I did. Because I thought, one day I'm going to grow up and be big enough to whoop you, And that was my, I guess, goal in life when I was little, was to be able to defend myself against him. To this day, I'm 60 years old and I've never been hit. I've been through many fights in my life. And I've never been hit as hard as my dad has hit me. And I can remember that because he put my tooth on my lip twice. But he was something. Anyway, that was in 1975, my dad passed away. He was always, had money, he was a good breadwinner. He had his own business. He had a lot of shady stuff going on that I was too young to understand. It kind of affected me later on in life that I didn't even know until I went into service. Anyway, my mom, she had always been a stay-at-home mom, and took care of the house and everything. Well, when he passed away, of course, he had life insurance and all, but, back then it took a while to get all that stuff going. She went and got a job. She got her license. This is my mom. She's never drove a car. She never even tried to before. Well, she went and got her license, very proud of herself, was doing great, got a job, making friends. Her life finally opened up. She was blooming like a flower. Well, right in the middle of that, she was diagnosed with MS. And to see her going from that woman that was smiling and building her life to being stuck in a wheelchair, and her mind was great, but her body was wasted. Her nerves and everything were wasted. I mean, it was mind-blowing to me as a child, When I wasn't a child, I was 16, 15 when she got diagnosed. She passed away when I was 17. I made a promise to her that I would graduate high school, and I did. I made a promise to myself that when I turned 18, I was going to go sign up for the service because I knew where I was heading, and it wasn't a good place. So the day of my 18th birthday came, went down, signed up, got sworn in, went over to the bar, got drunk. My 18th birthday, signed myself up. Well, January come around. That was in September, my birthday. My cycle didn't start till January, so I had to get a job and wait till January to get shipped out. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to basic and AIT. While I was doing that, while I was getting a job, I was working for a place called Insultemp Airco, and it was a refrigeration wrapping company type thing. And I'd never smoked a cigarette or nothing in my life before that. A cigarette. Done all the others, but never smoked a cigarette. Well, break time would come around, everybody be sitting around smoking cigarettes, and I'd be twiddling thumbs and doing all this. Finally, I said, let me have one of them. Worst decision I ever made. Smoked for just about 18 years. This June made 24 years that I quit. So I'm glad of that. I don't beg it's made of that one. So one great thing about the service is the travel. I got to go to Germany a couple of times. Got to go to Australia once. All over the United States. And it's weird because since I've been out of the service, I haven't traveled at all. Continental United States a little bit, but nothing overseas like I did. I even got to go to Grenada back in, when was it? Yeah, October 25th, 1983. They tagged me. I was a forward observer. They tagged me to a British unit. I got sent with a bunch of British people I didn't even know. Got tied with them, and I was their forward observer for their unit when the kids got, I don't know if y'all remember, but the kids got, I can't remember the name. It was a terrorist organization type, but they were loosely called that back then. But they had kidnapped a bunch of kids in an orphanage, and we went in and took them back out, rescued the kids. I lost a very good friend of mine that day. I watched him get blown up by a mortar round. I mean, like pieces of his shoes and all they got from me. So that was my eye-opening experience, I guess you would call it. All right, when I got out of the service, I went and spent 2 years with my granddad. His leg got burned up while I was in the service, and it had hurt him real bad. So he couldn't move around real good. So I went. He lived in Maryland, so I went back to Maryland and split wood for him for 2 winters, and got him going with that. He got back to feeling where he could get back around and moving around again. So I went back home to Florida. Got a good job. Got my own place in Daytona. Of course, people I knew were still around in the same neighborhood, same people. And it wasn't too long after I got back, I got busted for selling weed. Well, when I got busted, 2 guys jumped on me. Oh, I thought they were trying to rob me. Well, it turns out they were both undercover police officers, and, I'm fighting with them, literally fighting with them. And once they did show me the badge, I stopped, but I got charged with that. Even though they didn't identify themselves, pretty much got railroaded on that, but that's, neither here nor there, too, Got sentenced 18 months, first time ever really getting in trouble. So I thought, okay. So here I went to FSP Maine, spent 18 months there. Got out, got out, and about, I would say 3 years later, I got a violation of probation, and they sent me back. And I did 5 years on that one. So I did 3.5. So I got 5 years behind bars that lock and close on you till I can't never get back. And I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, because it's not a very good lifestyle, or it's more about survival than anything, because you don't have friends in prison. And if you think you do, you'd be wrong. While I was incarcerated on my second time, I got into a beef with a young black fella. He was what we called jits back in the day. They were jitterbugs, and he was like 19. Jitterbug is a young adult male, and it's like a jitterbug in the water, just always moving, always active, so you call them jits. And he got into a beef with me. Well, I used to work in the kitchen, and I used to scrub pots and pans. Well, I had gloves that would come up to here because the water is like 220 degrees. It's boiling water, because you got to, because it's all stainless steel, big tubs and all. I come around the corner, there's a partition, like a wall separating. I come around the corner, and this young black male had broke a mop handle. And if you ever been in prison, they're industrial mops, and they're about yay big around. They're not like an ordinary mop at your house. They're twice that size. And he proceeded to hit me right here. He broke my orbital bone and all that, my cheekbone. And that's my good eye. And so, of course, when I do this, everybody's blurry now, because I have 2100 vision in this eye. my first thought is, of course, it, closed it up pretty good. And I thought, boy, this ain't going to end well. And but he was stupid. He dropped a stick, and he had an afro. And I could see him enough to get my hands in his hair, and I pushed his face down into that water. And I climbed up on him. I mean, I tried to drown him. I really did. Because I thought, either him or me. And it ain't going to be me, not today. You know what I mean? So that, I caught an attempted murder charge out of that. So I had to go to court for that. I mean, I caught a real world charge while I was locked up, so that kind of threw me backwards and all. But I do remember, I could see well enough that when they took him out of the sink, that he had pieces of skin peeling off his face, and it was pink underneath and red, and I don't want to get too graphic. That was probably my darkest hour, because I really tried to kill that man. Like I said, it was him or me, but, I'd already seen enough people get killed being in the service, and being in prison the first time, I watched two big guys go at it, and it wasn't a nice thing. Anyway, we get out of that. Getting back to this, back on January 17th of 2020, I was at the house, and I was informed by Jackson County's finest that I had 10 minutes to pack my stuff and leave, along with my son, because they didn't ask him to leave, but he's like, no, Dad, I'm going wherever you're going. I am not staying here. So I look at it like, he got evicted too. Or not evicted, we didn't get evicted, we got removed. At the time, I didn't know who else to call. I called Bobby. Bobby, I believe, was at an RV show in Nashville that day. And Bobby said, come to the house and we'll figure it out. And I didn't know what else to do. So me and my son, we come to the house, a little bit of bag of stuff each, we only had 10 minutes. I didn't know what I was going to do, but God knew exactly. He knew exactly what I needed, and he did as only he can do. And I am still here to that house 3 years later, and I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I live in a barn, and I love it. It's just the camaraderie, the love, everything that I see. I watch through my eyes a Christian life evolve in front of me. And it touched me so much that there's no way ever that I'll ever go back to being that guy again. Never. Because I see what this side holds. And this side holds everything. It holds the riches, not the world. I don't want the world's riches. I want God's riches. I want Jesus' love. And I want the love of my family. And I want to show my love to this family, And that really touched me. That took me a long way around. It set me on this incredible, incredible journey. And with each step that I get and I grow, it's like an awakening. It's like being a child all over again. And I know we're supposed to be childlike going in to see God. And I know that because we are God's children. And it's really wonderful that I get to experience. It's almost like living my childhood over again, but on the level that I wanted, not the level that was given to me. You know what I mean? God has given me a second chance to see what this is all about and to see how this comes about. I'd also like to say thank you to my pastor. You are a wonderful person. His wife, his mother. You people you guys are awesome. And there is Pastor Appreciation Month. And I know it's just for the month, but I'll tell you now, I appreciate you more than just a month. Every minute of every day. It does. And I want you to know that. And I want you to know that each and every one of you have brought something special and unique into my life. And I hope that during the course of knowing me, that I get to show that and reciprocate it back to you. Because without y'all, none of this is possible. Without God, none of this is at all possible. But it takes a good support, you know. And to think now, you know, that I'm doing a class twice a week now, you know, and reaching out to people that need it, that want it, you know, even the people that don't want it. I didn't want it, but I didn't know about it. So if I can touch just one person that way, you know, that's the world is that much better. But hopefully I can touch more people, because I ride around with that tag on the front of that car, serving Jackson County and beyond. And I believe that, you know what I mean? Because we touch a lot of people, you know, through everybody here, you know what I mean? Because each and everybody runs through their own course during the course of the day, and they say, hey, you know, I've had a chance to espouse this about the Lord, or I got a chance to learn this about the Lord that I didn't know, you know. I love this Bible study. I mean, I've learned so much, you know. I love reading the book. But talking about it enhances it even that much more, you know. And with that, I'd like to, if I got time, to read the 12 gifts of life recovery. And this is part of the Life Recovery Bible and the study that I'm doing and trying to teach. You know, I'm not a teacher by nature, but I guess I am. You know, I'm a lot of things that I didn't know I was. You know, and that's a very much an awakening for me. You know, I'll try to get through these pretty quick. This is the 12 gifts of life recovery, and this is out of that book. The first one is hope. We can rejoice, too, when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character. And character strengthens, character strengthens our confidence, hope of salvation. And this hope will not lead to disappointment. For we know how dearly God loves us, because he has given to us the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts with his love. And that's Romans 5, chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. Number 2 is power, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. That's Philippians 4:13. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1:7. Character. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. And that's from Galatians 5, chapter 5, 22, verse 22, 23. Clarity. Now we see these imperfectly, like puzzling reflectors in a mirror. But then we will see everything with perfect clarity. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. Security. Fear of the Lord leads to life, bringing security and protection from harm. That's Proverbs chapter 19, verse 23. If God is for us, who can ever be against us? Since he did not spare even his own son, but also gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? Romans chapter 8, 31, 32. Abundance. And this same God who takes care of me will supply all your needs from his glorious riches, which has been given to us in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19. Wisdom. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One results in good judgment. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. That's James chapter 1, verse 5. Self-control. But you are not controlled by your sinful nature. You are controlled by the Spirit, if you had the Spirit of God living in you. Romans chapter 8, verse 9. But the Holy Spirit produces self-control. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, 23. Freedom. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. That's Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. Happiness. Make me walk along the path of your commands, for that is where my happiness is found. And that is Psalm 119, verse 35. The hopes of the godly result in happiness, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing. And that's Proverbs chapter 10, verse 2. Serenity. I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, nor angels nor demons. Neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. That's Romans chapter 8, verse 38. And the last one is peace. I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace that I give is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid. And that is from John chapter 14, verse 27. And I'm going to end on this. As my Christian brother told me how I could once check my walk with God by how I reacted on 3/16/13, March 16th, 2013. That's the day that Tyler's mother passed away. She died from breast cancer. I crawled into a bottle, and I barely remember signing papers for him to come get her. And I stayed there for a week. I was no good to him or anybody else. On 3/16/21, that's the day Anita passed away. And if you'll notice, they were both 3/16. And the difference between 13 and 21 is amazing. Because 21, I was there. I knew where she was going. And I was okay with it. And when they took her off, it's amazing because when they took her off the tube, the ventilator, I don't know, I know you have, but it almost looks like a fish out of water. They gasped for air. And when we walked in, of course, her daughters just broke down hard. So I'm holding them, and we finally got them settled down enough that they could come hold her hand. Well, after talking in her ear for about 5 minutes, telling her that we're here and that, Jesus is waiting for you, and it's okay for you to go see him. And she calmed down, and we sat there and we were talking and praying, and very emotional, of course. And towards the end of it, not long before she passed, because she had no brain function left at all, because when they clamped that, where the aneurysm happened the second time, when they clamped it down, that cut off one of the major arteries to her brain, killed it. So she would have never come back anyway. When, probably 10 minutes before she passed, we were sitting there and I'm looking at her, and of course the daughters were talking back and forth to each other. And it was amazing because Anita opened her eyes and she looked right at me, and she looked right at Eve, and she looked right at Harmony. And I said, I hope you guys just saw that because she just said goodbye. And I knew that she couldn't see, but she saw. And that was God. That was definitely God. Letting us say goodbye. And it is amazing the difference that 8 years made. And how I responded to it. And on that, I'm going to say this. Commit to the Lord, whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. And that's Proverbs 16, verse 3. And this journey is like, I feel like I'm still taking baby steps. And I know I'm taking bigger ones, but it's just overwhelming. And I would hope that anybody that accepts the Lord, if he gets just a piece of what I got, you know, God bless you. Thank you.
Stay right there for a minute. You can sit down. Down here. We love you. Thank you. And I'm talking through your mic, not mine. I want to do something different. We missed October the 12th. He was sick. And we were going to do a birthday party for him that night, if you remember.
That was a Wednesday.
That Wednesday.
Yeah.
We were going to do a birthday party, and he was sick. So I want us to stand up and sing happy birthday for 4 years of recovery. Is that okay?
Happy anniversary instead of happy birthday.
Well,
That's what I said.
that's what she said. I think it's a birthday because it was a rebirth.
Yeah.
But I don't care. Anniversary, birthday. So, and then we're going to sing in One in the Bond of Love, and then we're leaving over there. Go ahead, darling.
Happy anniversary to you.
Happy anniversary to you.
Ah, boy.
Happy anniversary, dear.
dear Mark.
We love you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.